My name is Cindy Tackett, and I have been a member of Raleigh Court United Methodist Church for 23 years, and this is the story of restoration in my life. Approximately 15 years ago, my marriage failed, and I was left to be the single parent of 3 children. My youngest son, was an infant, and my other 2 children were 6 and 9 when I went through a very painful divorce. That was probably the most devastating experience of my life at the time, because everything that I had always dreamed about or wanted for myself and my children was gone. I remember how difficult it was to carry on and to function, and it was the darkest moment of my life. Even though I had been raised as a Christian my entire life and I had come to church every Sunday, it was very difficult to come to church being so broken. I felt like a failure. I felt like I was being judged, not by the people of the church, but internally I was judging myself. I felt like I had let God down because my marriage had failed and my family had failed, and I was raising my children alone. It took a lot of perseverance to continue to come to church, and it was very difficult to look around and see other intact families and sit on the pew alone with my 3 children. But I always felt better after coming, and I always felt more equipped to walk through the doors of the church and go out and persevere another week. It always strengthened me. It always lifted me up, and it always filled me up to give me what I needed to get through the day and the next week until there was a church service again. The people here at Raleigh Court were instrumental in the healing, in my healing, and the healing of my children and my family. I can tell you numerous episodes of times when the church reached out to me and supported me through financial gifts, through financial provision for groceries, money for groceries, money for gas, for childcare. One of the dearest members of our church, Joan Colette, called me and said, "I'm going to keep your baby when you go back to work and put your life together." And she continued to keep my son from the time he was 15 months old until he went to preschool, a Christian preschool, when he was about 4 and a half. My son Elijah had surgery during this time, and I was just getting back on my feet financially, and the church had sent me a book, a Max Lucado book entitled "He Still Moves Stones." And at that time in my life, one of my coping mechanisms in the evening when my children were asleep and I was alone was to read the Bible, to read devotions, to read Christian literature, to help me stay on task. And on this particular evening, I had been praying about how I was going to come up with the money for the copay for Elijah's surgery. And the copay at the time was about $308. That particular evening, I'd settled in on the couch and had opened the book. After reading a chapter or so, I got up to get something to drink. And in my nervousness and stressed out state, I remember dropping the book on the floor and the book kind of flying up in the air, and out of the book cascaded 3 $100 bills, which was $8 shy of the copay that I had to make for Elijah's surgery. And I knew then that God was actively working in my life and that the people at this church were standing beside me and supporting me in everything that I did. And I just continued to come to church, and I continued to teach Sunday school and to keep my kids in the choir and the bells and all of the programs, the family programs that were offered. And little by little, I started to heal. I started to put my life back together, and I started to feel whole with the love of this congregation and with the love of God. One of the most valuable lessons that I learned through my experience and my broken moment really helped me to be less judgmental, It helped me to be open and more understanding and compassionate and empathetic to people who are suffering, to people who are going through failed relationships or broken marriages. It made me a much more empathetic person and a caring person and a loving person, to where it strengthened me in the workplace as a healthcare provider, that I became more comfortable praying with and for my patients and their families. I also felt a calling to reach out to more people in the congregation who were suffering, and have hence lost several close friends to cancer, and was able to stand by them and minister to them in ways that I would not have been able to minister had it not been for my own brokenness. And I think God just has filled me up with, regardless of what we're going through, He's always there with us. He's always beside me. He's always walking with me. And I know He's always going to see me through whatever the circumstances are that I'm facing in my life, and that He'll always be there for me. And hence, hopefully I can be there for others. And through this experience, I will continue to live as a witness to the resurrection of Christ and His restoration in my life.